Hey, this is Adam Torres, and I'm here to tell you that it has never been easier to start your very own podcast. At Mission Matters, our goal is to amplify stories that matter. That means we want to help you start your podcast because your story matters. We can do this in 3 different ways. 1, join our podcast school and take a free or paid course. 2, visit our resources page where we've already figured out what you need, such as where to host your podcast. Or 3, heck, we can even do everything for you through our podcast agency, including editing for cheaper than you can do in-house. Oh, and no contract, services month to month. Get started by heading over to missionmatters.com and click on Start a Podcast. All right, now let's get into the show. Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Entertainment Podcast, your source for all things entertainment. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Kim Curry on the line, and he is an author, and we're going to get into a couple of his books here. Kim Curry, also known as Kid Curry, was his radio name. First off, Kim, welcome to the show.
Adam, thank you very much for having me today. I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I'm very entertained by what you do.
Oh, man. So I'm excited to talk to you today. I want to get into your books, and I'm excited to get into these. I mean, you're a pro at radio. I mean, did it for many years. Just to give the audience, just to start out, let's talk about your background a little bit. So how'd you get started in your career?
I'm from a little town in Colorado called Canyon City. There's only one radio station there. My father used to be a news guy on that radio station. He came home one day and asked me if I wanted to babysit the God Show. On Sunday mornings, they used to play tapes of the previous week church services, and nobody in the radio station wanted to do that. So when I was 17, he got me a job at that radio station. That took me off to college in Pueblo, Colorado, and then my first full-time job was in Knoxville. Shortly after that, I ended up in Miami, Florida. And then I went to San Antonio, Knoxville, Tennessee. I was also in Baltimore, Maryland, Washington, D.C., but of the 33 years I was in radio, 25 of those 33 years I was in Miami, Florida, and the last 9, I was the program director of the most listened to radio station in the Southeast USA, Power 96 FM in Miami, Florida. That's my radio career.
Wow, what an amazing career in radio. And let's just dive right into this book. So, Come Get Me, Mother, I'm Through. I mean, what was the inspiration for this memoir?
Well, my whole life, being a radio broadcaster, I had exacerbations of MS through my whole life, but I didn't know what they were. They culminated when I turned 50 in 2005. And suddenly MS just took over my life and I was forced into retirement. For 10 years, my condition went down fairly rapidly. Then the doctor made a change in my medicine. I took high doses of vitamin D. Now, those 2 things, Adam, kind of leveled my condition off. However, I have lost use of my legs. My vision's not right. I have bladder problems. My shoulders don't work. So, But what the real problem, Adam, was I spent my entire life on the radio, and people gravitated towards me because of my radio show or because I was running the Listen to radio station in Miami, Florida. But then when I was diagnosed, when you're on crutches, when you're in a wheelchair, people move away from you. So the psyche of going from Kid Curry, the radio guy, to Kim Curry, the MS patient, was really hard in my brain for a while, and it took me a long time to figure out how to deal with it.
What are some of the takeaways that you kind of want some of the readers to draw from this? Obviously, everybody, when they read a memoir, somebody's story, they're going to get something different out of it. That's obvious. But I do know, just having written quite a bit myself and interviewing quite a few authors, that sometimes when you're sharing your story, you have some things that you want people to get out of it. What do you hope people get out of this book?
Well, I think it's important to remember how resilient we all can be. I used to be the kind of guy people gravitated toward, then I became the guy people moved away from, but what I realized was the wheelchair I was in also gave me the authority to control the room. I changed my attitude. Instead of being afraid that I was bothering people in the wheelchair, I turned it around. I became the focus because when you roll in a wheelchair, everybody sees you. I use that to my advantage. I say hello, I wave, I'm not afraid to interplay with people. So I think you have to, in your mind, realize that things can be bad, but if you look at them hard and realize what your place is, you can come out of anything. And in this particular case, I think people should realize that it was a fairly hard struggle for me, but because of medicine and because of a good attitude and the commitment to my wife to be as strong as I possibly can at all times, that's what I want people to see.
Can you give us obviously we're not going to spoil the book because we want people to go buy it, number one. So I love helping authors sell books. So everybody listening, go out. It's really easy to find on Amazon. I just typed in Kim Curry. It came right up. So definitely really easy to find. Or you can also, of course, go to Kim's website. So that also does it. So krcurry.com, and you just click publications and you're going to see both books. As we're going to talk about the second book in a moment. But that being said, so Kim, if can you share one of the stories from the book, or just one of the things, just to give the listeners a flavor for the content?
Well, I believe that I was fine until I turned 50, and then I had to realize what it was like to deal with the insurance industry. My wife fought for me like crazy, and what we realized was it costs to be disabled in America. I only get one wheelchair. It's a motorized wheelchair, but for me to leave my house, I have to have a vehicle that can transport that wheelchair, or I have to have my own manual wheelchair to put in the car. So I have to buy my own wheelchair. I can use my hands to drive, so I have to go out and spend money to be taught how to drive with hand controls. Then I have to buy the hand controls to have those installed. So in order for me to live a normal life, it does cost to be disabled in America, and I think you'll find that in the book. But you get also good tips from my wife on how to maneuver the insurance system. So I think there's good things to be taught in this book.
Let's switch it up a bit. I do want to spend some time with what we have left on the death of fairness. So tell us about this book.
This is a book that basically my father and I discussed over a 30-year period. I'll make it real simple.
Wow.
In 1987, Ronald Reagan rescinded the Fairness Doctrine. What that was the rule that required equal time for contrasting points of view on American radio and television broadcasts. When you rescinded that doctrine, he did it because the owners of the day of the TV and radio stations in America realized that it cost money and took time to find people with contrasting points of view and to give equal time. So they got to Reagan and they told him it's costing too much money, let's get rid of this thing. And he said that the Fairness Doctrine was antagonistic to the rights secured in the First Amendment of freedom of speech. But what you effectively do when you take out the Fairness Doctrine is you take out the second part of the conversation. In other words, the president is from Kenya. The president is from Kenya for 15 minutes. Under the Fairness Doctrine would have had to be immediately followed by, no, the president's not from Kenya. Here's the facts for 15 minutes. So when you take out the Fairness Doctrine, you take out the second part of the conversation, and all you hear are the lies without debate. So that affected a small town in my fictional story. It affected the town so much that the town eventually burned and people died because of the way it affected the radio station. So it's a fairly quirky little story that my dad and I came up with over a 30-year period, but it all has to do with the rescinding of the Fairness Doctrine. There are many people in America, including Republicans and Democrats, who believe we should go back to some form of the Fairness Doctrine, which brings me to my third book, which is what I'm writing right now, which is what it's all about, is trying to come back with a feasible way to come up with a Fairness Doctrine that will be usable in today's society. You really need to debate both sides of every fact, as opposed to just letting lies go without debate.
Wow, and for somebody like me who, when that was done before my time, I didn't even know that existed. Like, I'm just being honest, I didn't even know that. That's amazing. Like, I didn't even think that was a possibility. It's amazing.
Adam, I can tell you part of what I do is I've purchased my own books. I hand them out to the people in coffee shops, the young people. My hairdresser, my wife has a young hairdresser. All of her hairdressers have read the book. Young people don't realize what happened here in 1987. And when you realize that what that did is it brought you Rush Limbaugh. What that did is it brought you these people who would say conspiracies without fact, without debate. And that's what you have now. That's why you have the division you have in America today. Had he not rescinded that fairness doctrine, you would have had every lie debated, and we wouldn't be in the trauma we're in today in society. I truly believe that.
Wow, how interesting! What a policy can happen. I guess my mind's still blown that type of that even existed. Honestly, because now I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, what would social media look like? What would everything look like if you had to have debate or have? I'll tell you one thing that it would just be obvious to me. I would argue that the majority of people would have a higher cognitive skill for debate and not just digest information, because they would grow up with it. They'd understand there's two different sides to things. Where I think that cognitive function is literally, it's being taken out of our population to a certain extent.
Well, if you're old like me, you can remember all the way back to Saturday Night Live when they used to do debates back and forth between the conservative the conservative man and the liberal woman. And it was humor. It was funny the way they did it, but it taught you how to debate. It was on Saturday Night Live. But it all ended in 1987. It all ended when Reagan said, that's enough. And I think today, if he was here today, I don't believe he would think this was a good idea. I think Mr. Reagan would think, what did I do?
So I have to ask this question on my end. When are you starting the podcast? I'm saying, people want to hear from you. When are you starting the podcast? It's so easy to do. You could do it on your phone. I mean, come on. We need the return. It doesn't have to be Kid Curry. You can use another name, or you can use Kid Curry. Now there's a whole new platform out there. You brought me up to date on the 1987 and what's going on with Ronald Reagan. Well, I'm bringing you up to date with what's going on with technology and the podcast. You need to start your own, in my opinion, because you have a lot of good content. You have a lot of good things to say and teach. And just like you're handing out your book, imagine if you're handing out a podcast episode every week that people can continue to learn from you from, because I want to hear more from you and what you're doing. So that's just my 2 cents there, Kim.
I appreciate that, Adam. And I can tell you, you are not the only one. I get this all the time. In fact, you'll see on my website, krcurry.com, there's a click, you can click on interviews. And I've actually done interviews with some fairly famous people I used to work with, and you can see these interviews that came off my Facebook page. But I do this kind of in my own form, but Adam, my problem is multiple sclerosis. I cannot consistently commit to doing something like that because there are weeks when my brain just doesn't work because of the MS. But trust in knowing that when you look at the interviews on my page, you'll see I do this. So in my different.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yes,
I love it, Kim. Well, I had to get you on that one. I'm like, well, I want you back. I get it, though. I completely get it. And we do appreciate your time today. So, one last time, Kim. So, if somebody is listening to this and they want to learn more about your books and they want to learn more about, and to listen to your interviews, what's that website one more time? Because maybe they didn't have time to write it down the first time you left it or I left it.
Thanks, Adam. It's krcurry.com. Very simple. krcurry.com. You get to read about my books and my upcoming book, and you'll be able to see the interviews that I've done in my blogs. I also throw out weekly blogs. So that's where you can find me.
Fantastic. Well, Kim, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and also your books. And congrats on the 2 and a 3rd on the way. So great stuff there. Sounds like you're in an extremely creative period in your life. So congrats there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review in the Apple iTunes store. And if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Entertainment, definitely give us a subscribe there. But also leave us some comments on the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're on. And Kim, thanks again for coming on the show.
Adam, that was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.